Today we are going to compare the tools people used a million years ago, then 100,000 years ago, 10,000 and all the way up to today, and see how they evolved over time. So, a million years ago. Back then, people weren't even Homo sapiens yet. They were Homo erectus, upright humans. They lived in caves, and honestly, a stick and a rock were enough for pretty much everything in daily life. You could throw the stick, fight with it, or use it to dig a small hole, for example, to set a trap. Even a million years ago, people already knew how to make fire by friction, and for that you also needed sticks. You could even make a torch using animal fat as fuel. But the main tool was still stone. Homo erectus didn't really make tools. They mostly searched for rocks with the right shape for whatever task they needed. Now, let's jump to 100,000 years ago. By this point, humans had already become Homo sapiens, and they started turning stones into more complex objects, things you could actually call tools. So, let's try to recreate them. First, we need to find stones with the right shape and, just as important, made of strong material, so they don't crumble. We gathered a whole pile like this. Alright, this one is heavy, kind of axe-like. This stone is naturally very sharp, which means it could make a good knife. This one could be a chisel. This would work as spear tips. This one looks like an axe, but it's too small. Same with this one, not great. So let's start with the knife. You have to study the stone and try to predict where to strike, so the right piece breaks off. This fragment is sharp, but it's too small and awkward to really use as a knife. This one looks better. We've got a reasonably sharp edge and a grip that actually feels usable. Let's try cutting something. With a couple knives like this, you could fully butcher an animal, but we obviously can't show that here, so we just cut some meat. Honestly, it works! A solid knife! When we went to museums on school trips, they had tools that looked pretty much like this. Next, we decided to make an axe. For that, you need a stone that's both heavy and sharp, basically like a real axe. Some stones were already usable, even without any processing. We didn't get that lucky. Back then, people didn't really know how to properly shape stones yet, so everything relied on how it naturally fractures. Our break wasn't ideal, but we did get a sharp edge. Let's try chopping a stick. Most of the time, it would honestly be easier to just snap it by hand. But we're doing this for the experiment. The stick is cut, but trust me, my hands are absolutely vibrating. And the stone dust completely rubbed my skin raw. So yeah, not a great axe. I definitely wouldn't even try to chop down a real tree with this. But in the next period, that actually became possible. This brings us to 10,000 years ago. This is when people transitioned from a nomadic lifestyle to a settled one and started making stone tools for pretty much every aspect of life. For example, this stone drill right here. But the main thing I want to do is make a real stone axe, basically like in Minecraft, and try to chop down a large tree with it. By this time, polishing became common, and making an axe like this could take up to a week. So, for the sake of the experiment, we helped ourselves a bit with modern tools, otherwise we'd be chipping and grinding this thing forever. In the end, we got a stone like this, nice and sharp. Now we need a solid wooden handle with good leverage, and using the same stone, we carve a small slot so the head can sit inside it. Back in the day, people used animal hide for this, but we like animals, so we went with a leather belt instead. Feels solid, shouldn't fall apart. We picked a tree that's not too thick. Let's go! Yeah, okay. Our mounting didn't hold up, but we didn't give up. We reinforced it with multiple layers of rope. That looks a lot better. Bit by bit, chip by chip, the tree slowly starts to give in. The axe chipped slightly, but jumping ahead, it did survive until the end. I'm already getting tired. But an experiment is an experiment. Oh man, this is going to take a while. Ancient people probably had better axes than this one, but they were also insanely strong and tough. Oh, I am exhausted, and that's not an exaggeration. We're only halfway through. On top of that, every hit sends vibrations straight into the handle, and my fingers are barely holding on anymore. Time for a break. The deeper you get into the trunk, the harder it becomes to keep chopping. I worked on this tree until evening, and the whole process took 4 hours. We didn't film anything else that day. But the next day, the most interesting part of the video was still ahead. Next up, 1000 years ago. This is the period when people mastered a resource that completely changed the course of history, the foundation of powerful empires and the development of civilization itself: iron ore. It's already slightly magnetic, but this still isn't iron yet. It needs to be processed, and only then does it become usable. Let's try forging an iron knife. And first, we need an anvil. This one weighs about 60 kilograms. Next, we need some firewood to get the forge going. We stack it like this, kind of like a chimney, so it catches fire more easily. Then we put some crumpled paper inside. Now the most important part. See this motor? That's the blower. Back in the day, blacksmiths used special bellows for this, but in our case, the forge has been upgraded to an electric motor, and we light it. The flame instantly gets stronger, and now we add coal. Once it catches, tongues of flame start bursting out from the inside, all thanks to the airflow. The temperature inside has reached what we need for forging metal. We grabbed some random scrap iron and placed it right in the center, where the coals are the hottest. The metal slowly heats up. As soon as it turns red, you can start forging. Basically, forging is just shaping iron into the form you want. When it's hot, the metal feels almost like clay, just a lot harder. You've got roughly 20 seconds to work. After that, the piece has to go back into the fire. The harder you strike, the faster the metal stretches out. The blacksmith's job is to shape something that's both functional and well-made. That's not easy, and truly skilled blacksmiths were rare. In the end, I ended up with this knife. It's not the prettiest, it looks a lot like early metal tools, but it does the job. We also decided to forge a spearhead. A skilled blacksmith could do this in 2 minutes. It took us 30 just to get the shape right and sharpen the edges. Now we slide it into a wooden shaft, secure it, and the spear is ready. This is exactly the kind of weapon people used to fight with. Just imagine how much work it took to prepare an entire army for a campaign. 500 years ago, progress really starts to accelerate and tools become more specialized and far more efficient. Over time, pretty much the entire range of hand tools we still use today was invented. Take saws, for example. Wood construction becomes widespread, and once people figured out how to make and sharpen proper teeth, they got a tool that could quickly cut boards to length. There are countless types of saws. Honestly, you could make an hour-long video just about them. Precision rulers. We even found this weird folding one. Levels. To make sure things are actually straight, both horizontally and vertically. Compasses. For drawing perfect circles with an exact radius. Planes. Because boards are never perfectly flat. Before using them, you have to shave them down and remove any warp or unevenness. A hand drill, obviously to drill holes. Chisels and all kind of other woodworking tools. For fine, precise work when making smaller parts. We hand cut a few boards. By the way, a sharp handsaw actually handled this pretty quickly. Then we decided to nail together a small box. Everything is held together with nails only. Yeah, it's very simple and primitive, but for someone like me who's used to modern power tools, it was actually enjoyable to work like this. And since in every previous period we made axes, we couldn't skip using a proper iron splitting axe here to chop a few logs. After several hours of suffering with a stone axe, chopping with the real one feels absolutely amazing. In old workshops, tools were accumulated over centuries. There were specialized tools for literally everything. And if you take care of hand tools, keep them sharp and maintained, they're only slightly less effective than electric ones. 100 years ago. This marks the beginning of the electric tool era. Back in the 1870s, the very first electric drills were already being patented, but they were actually made for dentists. About 30 years later, Black & Decker took that idea and released the first electric drill that really resembles what we use today. This isn't exactly that drill, but we dug through the entire internet and this one turned out to be the closest match from some German manufacturer. It's actually pretty powerful. It has a keyed chuck and there is a speed selector right here. One mode is fast for drilling and anything that needs high RPM. The other one is slower, with higher torque, for driving screws. Motorization changed everything. Huge factories appeared, filled with massive electric machines. Before that, it was steam engines, or even water wheels. Power used to be transferred to each machine through these enormous complex belt systems. But once every drill got its own electric motor, the way people thought about tools changed forever. They weren't just workshop equipment anymore. Tools started showing up in almost every home for everyday tasks. From that point on, corded power tools continued to evolve steadily all the way into modern times. But there is one thing that would end up improving them dramatically. Nowadays, the cord. And today, it's honestly no longer necessary. We now have fully capable cordless battery-powered tools that don't really fall behind corded ones anymore. As battery chemistry improved, batteries gained more capacity and became capable of delivering much higher currents. That means you can now feed enough energy into a compact tool to power a drill or even an angle grinder. I only bought one recently and I genuinely regret not doing it earlier. Sometimes you need to cut something in an awkward or hard to reach spot. With the cord, you dragging extension leads around, getting tangled up. Here, you just grab it and cut. That's it. The batteries actually last a long time. While you're working with one, the other is charging. I don't own that many cordless tools yet, but I've always wanted more, and this finally gave me an excuse to pick up a few. This is a cordless circular saw for wood. The raw motor power here is actually higher than on my corded one. Why didn't I buy this sooner? I also have a chainsaw. No gasoline, no mixing oil, and it's way quieter. With active use, the battery lasts about an hour. The circular saw, roughly an hour as well. The angle grinder, a bit longer. The drill, basically all day. And the cordless blower gives you about 40 minutes of continuous airflow. It makes me wonder what the future has in store and what tools will look like 50 years from now.